The snake never asks for permission. It enters quietly, it destroys silently, and it leaves before anyone realizes what has been lost. The tragedy is not always that evil exists. The greater tragedy is that good witnesses it and decides it is not their problem. How many homes have been destroyed because neighbors remained silent? How many nations have fallen because citizens believed they were too comfortable to care? How many friendships have died because people watched injustice happen and chose convenience over courage? There is an old African story that carries a warning more relevant today than ever before. The hawk perched on a tree and watched the snake slide into the guinea fowl's nest and swallow her eggs. The hawk knew it was wrong. She even called it evil, yet she did nothing. Why? Because she believed she was beyond the snake's reach. But evil has a strange habit. It never stops where it begins. Sooner or later, it climbs. Special greetings to you, all Wisdom Gist lovers. Whichever part of the world you're watching us from, I welcome you to this special edition of our program. In today's section, we shall be looking at the day the hawk learnt indifference has a price. But before we delve into that, may I ask to please take a moment to subscribe to our channel. Also tap on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Thank you. Now, here is our story. The hawk sat proudly on the highest branch. Below her, the guinea fowl had built her humble nest among the grasses. One afternoon, the hawk noticed movement. A snake quietly slithered toward the guinea fowl's nest. The hawk watched every inch of its movement. She saw it swallow every egg. She shook her head. This is wicked. But she comforted herself. I am safe. My nest is high. My wings are strong. The snake belongs to the ground. When the grieving guinea fowl looked upward for help, the hawk looked away. Time passed. One day the hawk returned. Her own nest was empty. The eggs were gone. The same snake had climbed the tree. The predator she ignored had become the predator she feared. She screamed into the silence. But the only one left to hear her was the guinea fowl, still mourning. Neither could restore what had already been lost. Now, here comes the first lesson of our story. Evil grows where good people remain comfortable. One of history's greatest misunderstandings is believing evil succeeds because it is powerful. But more often, it succeeds because decent people become spectators. There is a timeless truth often attributed to Edmund Burke. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. Whether or not Burke phrased it exactly that way, the idea has echoed through generations because it captures a profound moral reality. Indifference can be as dangerous as wrongdoing itself. The hawk was not evil. She simply became useful to evil through silence. An African proverb says, when the termites begin eating your neighbor's house, your own house should not sleep. Because termites never stop after one wall. Let's consider an example. Imagine a workplace. One employee is constantly bullied. Everyone notices. Some whisper about it. Some feel sorry. Nobody speaks. Months later, the bully becomes bolder. Now the victims multiply. The silence that protected comfort eventually empowered cruelty. Here is the second lesson. Distance creates dangerous illusions. The hawk believed height meant immunity. How often do people think exactly the same way? I'm not poor. I'm not affected. My children are safe. My community is different. My family would never experience that. But history repeatedly reminds us that crises rarely stay confined. The byproducts are economic collapse, violence, corruption, drug abuse, broken families, and environmental destruction. These problems spread when ignored. Fire respects no property line. An African proverb says, the smoke from your neighbor's burning roof eventually enters your own house. Here is what research tells us. During the famous poem First They Came by Martin Yemola, he reflected on the danger of remaining silent while others were persecuted. Its message is unforgettable. When injustice comes for one group and everyone else remains silent, eventually there is no one left to speak when injustice arrives at their own door. The hawk learned this lesson too late. Third lesson, indifference slowly destroys compassion. Notice something remarkable. The hawk recognized evil. She even frowned. She possessed awareness, but lacked action. Knowledge without courage changes nothing. Compassion that never moves becomes decoration. Many people today are emotionally exhausted by constant exposure to suffering. They see stories of conflicts, hunger, disasters, or exploitation every day. This can lead to compassion fatigue, where repeated exposure dulls the impulse to act. Recognizing this tendency is important because allowing ourselves to become numb makes it easier for preventable harm to continue. An African proverb says, the child who is not embraced by the village may burn it down to feel its warmth. Neglect creates future crises. Let's take this case for example. A family notices a teenage boy falling into dangerous company. Everyone says it is his parents' problem. Years later, the same boy joins a criminal gang. Now the entire neighborhood pays the price. Ignoring early warning signs often produces larger tragedies. Fourth lesson, justice survives through collective responsibility. The guinea fowl looked upward. She was not necessarily asking the hawk to fight. She simply hoped someone stronger would care. Communities survive because people protect one another. Civilizations flourish when responsibility becomes shared. When everyone says someone else will help, often no one does. An African proverb says, "One finger cannot pick up a pebble." Communities exist because burdens were never meant for one person alone. Fifth lesson, the enemy studies our divisions. The snake understood something neither bird understood. Separated victims are easier prey. As long as the hawk and guinea fowl lived as strangers, the snake remained powerful. Many forces that exploit people, whether corruption, organized crime, manipulation, or abuse, often benefit when communities are divided, distrustful, or unwilling to stand together. Unity does not eliminate every threat, but it makes exploitation far more difficult. Let's cast our mind history lane. Societies have often become vulnerable when citizens ignored the erosion of justice until it affected them personally. Many historians point out that intolerance, corruption, and authoritarianism frequently expand gradually, testing whether communities will respond early or remain passive. Let's consider this case for example. Imagine two neighboring communities. One suffers frequent flooding because drainage systems are neglected. The other says, "It isn't our area." Years later, blocked waterways overflow. Both communities flood. Problems ignored upstream rarely remain upstreams. Sixth lesson, today's spectator may become tomorrow's victim. The hawk thought she was an observer, but life eventually made her a participant. This is one of the deepest truths in human existence. When people choose to remain indifferent to the reality around them, evil eventually wins. Such negligence always results to a political mess, bringing with it bad governance, genocide, economic hardship, family crises, loneliness, and injustice. The truth is, no one remains permanently above life's uncertainties. The roles we occupy today can change tomorrow. That is why empathy is not merely kindness. It is wisdom. An African proverb says, "Rain does not fall on only one roof." Now, let's look at what this story really teaches us. The snake is not merely a reptile. It symbolizes every force that quietly consumes what is precious. Corruption, injustice, violence, addiction, exploitation, hatred, greed, indifference. The guinea fowl represents vulnerable people. The hawk represents those with influence, strength, knowledge, or privilege. The question is not whether snakes exist. The question is whether those who see them will remain silent. Here are practical lessons for daily life from this story. Whenever you witness wrongdoing, ask yourself, can I safely intervene? Can I report it? Can I support the victim? Can I warn others? Can I refuse to normalize it? Not every situation requires confrontation, but very few require indifference. Wisdom lies in choosing a response that is both courageous and responsible. In conclusion, the hawk believed altitude guaranteed safety. She forgot that evil is patient. It climbs. The tragedy was never simply that the snake stole eggs. The tragedy was that someone strong watched someone weak suffer and mistook temporary safety for permanent security. There is a profound African wisdom. If you think because another person's heart is burning that your palace is safe, you have forgotten that the wind has no master. Every act of compassion strengthens the community. Every act of courage weakens injustice. Every time we stand beside someone whose voice is fading, we make it harder for the snake to return. So the next time you witness someone else's pain, ask yourself, am I watching the snake, or am I strengthening it through my silence? Because one day, when life tests your own branch, the voices that answer your cry may be the same voices you once chose to ignore. Remember this well, evil rarely becomes powerful overnight. It grows one silent witness at a time. But so does goodness. Every person who chooses to care, to speak, and to act with wisdom becomes a barrier between destruction and the innocent. In the end, the fate of every nest depends not only on the strength of its owner, but on the conscience of those who can see danger before it arrives. That is the drum of wisdoms worth carrying through every generation. Thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe to our channel and tap on the notification bell. Also like, share, and drop your comments for us. We love and deeply appreciate your support. Bye for now.